the leader set the tone.
Yeah.
What you say and what you don't say also matter. All of it really defines what an organizational culture.
Could you share a time when either your leadership, your own leadership, or a leader that you have observed in any of your avatars, in any of your organizations, did something or communicated something, shared something, which then actually really shaped employee behavior?
Welcome to Culture Café, a vibrant and inspiring podcast series brought to you by the Confederation of Indian Industry and Avatar, celebrating 25 years of shaping inclusive workplaces. In this milestone year, we bring you transformative conversations with leaders who are redefining workplace cultures. From boardroom wins to human movements that changed everything. These conversations are your backstage pass to how organizations thrive one connection at a time. In this episode, we are joined by Giridhar GV, Global CHRO at HGS. Giridhar oversees the entire employee life cycle, aligning HR strategy with business goals, nurturing culture, and driving leadership succession. With nearly 30 years of experience across manufacturing, hospitality, BPM, and professional services, Giri has led startups and global delivery centers alike. He's held senior roles at Indian Hotels, 24/7.ai, and most recently EY, where he served as COO and global talent leader for their global delivery services.
A warm welcome to Culture Café. This is the podcast brought to you by the Confederation of Indian Industry in partnership with Avatar, leaders in workplace, culture, and inclusion solutions. This is our 25th year. It's the silver jubilee of Avatar. And on this occasion, we thought, what better way to celebrate what we have done over these years than invite some amazing leaders to our studios and listen to them actually describe what culture is all about. So, in this series, I'm absolutely thrilled and delighted to invite and welcome Giridhar GV, also known as Giri, Global Chief Human Resources Officer at Hinduja Global Solutions. Giri, it's such a pleasure having you with us in the studios. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you, Dr. Soundarya. I think actually it's my pleasure and it's an honor to be on your podcast. You are somebody who is very well known, and for all the work that you've done, congratulations on completing 25 years. And it's a pleasure to be on this podcast.
Thank you, Giri. Thank you so much. And coming from you, who has seen us through many of our avatars and through your avatars as well, I think it's wonderful. It's a true testimony to the fact that good work and culture always remain top of mind. I'm going to jump right into this conversation, and I'm going to say that yours is a body of work that actually has been able to bring together multiple aspects of an organization. So, while yes, your title says Global Chief Human Resources Officer, I am fully aware of the fact that you have made deep investments into the organization by way of tech inputs, by way of actually articulating culture from an inclusion standpoint, also making sure that culture really translates into outcomes. Now, that's something, very, very unique and something which we hope we would be able to really, dig into during the course of this conversation. Let me begin by asking you, when we talk about culture, the most important thing or the first thing that strikes one is about leadership. It's about the fact that as a leader, you come to kind of embody the culture. You almost become synonymous with the culture of the organization. Could you share a time when either your leadership, your own leadership, or a leader that you have observed in any of your avatars, in any of your organizations, did something or communicated something, shared something, which then actually really shaped employee behavior?
Absolutely. Clearly, culture is really the DNA upon which organizations run, right? If our end service or a product is what we deliver, I think how we deliver that is really on these wheels of culture. And yes, the leaders play a very, very important role. A lot of it starts from the top. That does not mean that every employee doesn't contribute to the culture. I'm a huge believer that every person in the organization, irrespective of their titles, contribute to the culture of an organization. But the leader set the tone. What you say and what you don't say also matter. All of it really defines what an organizational culture is all about. So it's one of those things which is intangible. You can't touch it, but you can feel it every day when you're at work, every minute that you're at work. And that needs to be of something which attracts people, where the people want to be part of the organization, and it brings out the best in people if that is working well in an organization. So I've been a huge believer that's a very important part of the organization. I've had the opportunity to have been part of startup organizations, building something from bottoms up. And more so in such situations, every little thing that you do, in especially its formative stages, can have a huge impact on how people work with each other, how people relate to each other, how people contribute, and how people relate to the organization. Right? Just I mean, there's so many examples that I can quote in my over 30 years of working in different organizations. Sometimes small things, right? When I just want to give you one example of, let's say, a culture of collaboration. I've
Mm.
all believed it's extremely important, because none of us individually, no matter how brilliant we are, can change anything in an organization. We can only do it when we are able to, work with people, benefit from everybody's strengths, have an open mind to accept diverse views, diverse ways of thinking, diverse cultural backgrounds people come from. So, one such example is, I remember many years ago, working in an organization where there were two of these big functions which had to really
Uh-huh.
work very closely with each other. And there were a lot of hand-offs between each other. One does something, then it goes to another function, it comes back. And if that was not working well, the end delivery of what was meant to be would get impacted. And there was an impact on the experience, the end of it. And there was an instance where, I saw that obviously it was complicated, because this required a little bit of a back and forth between functions. And usually functions, each one is, focused on what they do. It's not everybody you can expect them to look at it from a CEO's eyes, right? So everyone
Yes.
does their bit. They try to do their best. So I saw that there was some amount of conflict happening, and it was impacting the end result. So I remember bringing in the heads of both these functions and saying, you both actually are so close to each other, you work so well. But when I look at the processes below, somehow things seem to be, I'm sure people mean well, but they're just doing their bit. Nobody's looking at end picture of what this all means. I said, how great it would be if you both brought in the key people from both your teams and actually told them clearly where the problem is and what you're expecting out of it. And if they know that you're joined at the hips, believe me, this conflict will never happen. Right? There's no point. You don't have to coach 50 people. You just demonstrate that you are together in this and see what happens. Believe me, in a few months, these teams even came up with, and they actually developed a small application where they could actually track how the work goes. Because of the human element, they were missing a few things. And
Fantastic.
naturally, people tend to blame. That's a natural defense that everyone has. Everything changed, because the moment they saw that my boss and your boss heading two different functions are in this together, somehow the message, you don't have to say a word. The message went down and things started falling in place, and it was never a problem. This example I'm quoting say that, a culture of collaboration
Yeah.
will be driven by a simple action that's shown at the top. And naturally, everything trickles down and people start working seamlessly. And that's what, you don't need huge interventions. You don't need to do huge training interventions to people to learn how to team with each other.
Yeah.
Message at the top, the culture at the top saying, you know what, we are in this together, right? And we are all in this together, whether you miss something, I miss something in delivery. that message flows beautifully, right? It's almost like a waterfall from there. So that's another
Well,
one example which what I should share, where sometimes small things that you mention to people in a very simplistic form, not trying to make it too complicated, can do wonders to building a culture.
that really is a beautiful segue into my next question. I remember the times, and many of us who've been around for at least 15, 20, 25 years in the workplace, we all are aware of the power of just walking across to somebody, having that chat face to face, sitting down for a cup of coffee, and then, really sorting things out. And culture really gets built in those moments, of sharing, of interaction, cohesion. But today, teams are dispersed. You have globally distributed teams. You are a global CHRO, which means that you have under your purview so many different geographies. And we are by default having to depend so much on technology to do a lot of what otherwise this face to face exchange would do. So, do you think technology has enabled culture? Has it changed the way that you really you work with people? Would you say that you would like to change something about technology and its influence on culture?
It's a great question. Obviously, with some force and no choice, many of us learned a few years ago that using of technology, be it Zoom, Microsoft Teams, almost became a necessity for us to even do our basic work, right? Obviously, missing the big portion of having the coffee together in the office or having a lunch together in the office, there is no substitute to that, right? With this, and we're all obviously, social beings and we love being around people. But having said that, I think technology can actually be also used as a friend here, right? I think what was not possible before, where you actually had to fly thousands of miles to go somewhere else to actually be with somebody and actually make that presence felt. Believe me, today you can actually make it happen through these video conversations,
Yeah.
right? I'm not saying it's an exact substitute, but I think this has its own advantages, right? And especially in my role, we have operations in 9 different countries, and I do travel quite a bit. But having said that, I have a human limitation of how many countries I can travel to. So, but at the same time, you have to be in touch with people.
Yeah.
So, this medium of using tools to be able to actually see each other and talk to each other as if you are in person can be leveraged. Yes, I think I still feel whether you're in a room together or whether you're on a video, I think this human element still comes in. I think you have to be honest and authentic in building relationships. And I think, again, that's where the culture plays a role again, right? Do we have a culture of being honest, open, authentic? Can I be vulnerable with my colleagues? I think we need to ensure that the organization culture is wired in a way that this limitation of a technology where I'm actually seeing somebody on a screen shouldn't be a barrier for me to be able to actually speak my heart and share what I feel, right? Because if you're authentic and if that's the culture we drive in the organization, believe me, just looking at somebody in the screen doesn't matter at all. Maybe 15 minutes into a conversation, you will probably feel that you're actually with that person in the room. So I think while it all got forced upon all of us,
Mm.
COVID and whatever happened, I think there's a lot that came out of it. Today, I think people believe in having these as a standard accepted mode of conversations.
Yep.
Maybe people are able to avoid a lot of international travel and save costs for the companies because you're able to
True.
actually do these things. So what we couldn't even imagine today, it's become a reality. So I see this as a boon. But again, I think it needs to be backed up by good culture.
Yeah. No, I
I
loved it when you said that the cultural moorings of the organization have to take precedence over the execution of it through technology. So,
ab-
possibly, I think, one cannot miss the forest for the trees. So, it's important for us to build that inherent culture in whichever way, maybe in small connected teams, and then kind of, cascade it ahead to globally distributed teams and maybe, receive the best of both worlds kind of a phenomenon. And you spoke about COVID and the huge crisis that was upon all of us. Prior to the COVID, in the memories of people who have been in the workforce for at least 20 or 25 years, one will definitely remember the subprime crisis. One would remember the dot-com bust. One would remember the fact that we had the global recession of 2013-14. And during all of these times, some of it was uniquely Indian, some of it was global. And what we all experienced was how culture came alive. And it was during these critical moments, pivotal moments, that we actually knew that this is the culture of my company because people demonstrated it and nobody was looking, nobody was checking. But what needed to get done got done. So I just want you to share your experience or an anecdote that tells us about how culture's moment of truth really comes during these times of crisis. Giri, your views on that?
No, absolutely. In fact, when I joined HGS, I actually joined 1 month after COVID, outbreak happened across the globe. So I am an example where I actually joined a new organization in a leadership role, in a global leadership role, virtually from home. While I had met everybody before, just around the time when I had committed to join HGS is when the outbreak happened. So it was a very unique experience for me to, I've worked in different organizations, worked with people, but I've never ever joined an organization from home. I think that was a new experience for me. And just as I joined it, we were in the peak of the crisis, right? All the computers were being shipped to the employees' homes. All these employees who probably never worked from home were working from their homes from different places. Some of them had even out of panic gone to their respective hometowns, and the teams here were shipping it to, even towns outside of Bangalore and so on. So I remember it was in my first few weeks where for me it was almost like my induction was almost like drinking through a hose pipe, right? It was like I just joined, and we used to have these evening executive leadership calls every day at around 6:30 in the evening, because that's when rest of the world also wakes up in the morning, right? Every day, all the different CEOs of our different businesses, everybody would be on the call, and everybody sharing in terms of how they're handling in their respective geos, how many people are working, how many people logged in yesterday. It was in that form of a crisis mode. I saw, this whole thing of, first and foremost, I was in a new organization. And then I'm meeting all my colleagues who I want to be working for years to come for the first time in a crisis mode. To me, that daily calls, I almost started feeling like in a week's time, I felt that I'd known all of them for a long time because I'm seeing them every day at 6:30 in the evening. It's a long call. And so to me, the crisis also gave an opportunity. And here's another wonderful thing that I heard, right? While the leadership team used to meet at some frequency on a call, never had they ever met each other every day, right? And it was on a video call. We were meeting every day. And I was a new person. I thought maybe, this is how frequently they talk to each other because everybody was. So, in fact, one of it was a very tenured senior leader said that, hey, do you guys realize that, for the first time ever, we're actually talking to each other every day. And actually, one of them said, you know what, in this whole process, I've come to know you much more than I've ever known you. When I heard these comments, I thought this was actually a crisis management, right? This was a time where we were actually trying to deal with a very, very difficult situation of making sure that our customer work is getting done, our employees are safe. But yet, it was a brilliant outcome of the crisis where the leadership team felt they were more closer to each other than ever before because they were just looking at each other and talking to each other every day.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And you kind of transported me back to those days when the comfort in actually looking at that set of people around in the little black boxes that you see on Zoom, and to actually feel that, yeah, they're doing all right, they're doing well. And here we are, all of us together solving the problem. That's truly culture in action. That's culture just kind of, getting demonstrated. That was so wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Giri. This is a beautiful segue into my next question. Often, the experience of culture for any company, the experience of an organization for any individual is through a variety of different rituals. You cut a cake for a birthday, or you used to have this Pizza Hut habit where if you enjoyed the meal, you would ring that bell and go out on your way out. And that was such a cute ritual, and people would really enjoy it. And it also made the customers look forward, to be able to do that. And many companies then began such cultures, such little rituals, habits, you know, which at a later point of time really embedded itself into the way any new person comes in and experiences culture. So, any such anecdote where a ritual has been very meaningful?
Through all the years of my working, I've seen some rituals, I like the word ritual that you are using, be it as simple as celebrating people's milestone, for
Yeah.
example, number of years of service that gets completed, or even simple things like celebrating people's birthdays, celebrating a monthly rewards ceremony that happens. We do all of these things at AGS. And in the organizations that I worked for even before, all of these, as ritualistic as it feels, it makes a huge difference to people, right? Anything, as they say, what you get more of what you celebrate, right?
Yeah.
In an organizational cultural perspective, and small wins, or actually having a ritual to ensure that you're actually recognizing a bunch of people who have probably done something very well in a project. All of these things, I think, go a long way in creating a very strong, positive moments of truth to the employees. And they can go a long way. In one of my earlier organizations,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I was involved in actually driving that culture for a long time. This was almost 20 years ago when 25 years ago when I was part of that organization in its early days. There was a beautiful way of appreciating each other,
Mm.
right? And this was a concept that we had picked up from the US, but it became very popular in India, right? And in that organization, we used to call it as a rave card. It was
Aha.
a card, a heart-shaped card. A rave stood for random acts of value and excellence, and it would be kept everywhere in the office. If you and I are working on something important and you help me through the whole thing, all that I do is I just go pick up one of those cards that are kept in different places in the office. I just write a thank you note to you. And I can say whatever my heartfelt emotion, or it can sometimes just be a simple thank you. And you give the card to somebody else, right? And people stick it on their boards. It was called Brave Card. So, and it was driven through a culture saying appreciation is an expensive gift that should be given out freely.
Ah.
It was kind of a small ritual that people keep appreciating each other and giving it, but it meant so much, right? And we used to see this all along. Even then, whenever somebody walked into my room and gave me a rave card, I still felt very nice. We're all humans, like feel
Yeah.
appreciated or somebody
Yeah.
appreciates you, feel good. And when I still have a whole bundle of them, some of them, unfortunately, it's lost. The ink has kind of dried up on
I
it.
know.
It's a small ritual, but it
Yes.
can go a long way. So I think these are some good examples that I've seen in my own work life where, and it doesn't have to be something grand. It doesn't
Yeah.
have something big,
Yes.
but a ritual that's done with an intent to actually create an impact
Mhm.
and it's done with authenticity. I think it can go a long way in building a very strong culture.
Wonderfully said. Wonderfully said. And that brings us to the last question of this evening's podcast. Time flies when you're having a great conversation, and there's so much of wonderful exchanges happening. And this question is about the value of culture and its effect beyond the materialistic, measurable outcomes. You practice a culture or you drive a culture with certain values primarily because you want certain outcomes. It could be about customer obsession, it could be about quality, it could be about innovation at every stage. But there are some moments when you are in an organization and the culture has actually gone above and beyond just profitability and money. The ROI is something different. The ROI is something you never expected. What would that be? Any examples or any experience that you've had where the culture has actually gone beyond what we expect for it to be delivered in money terms?
I think I have one example that I can share, and I think we had a wonderful example at HGS during the COVID crisis. One of the values that HGS kind of stands on as a part of our principles, which is also part of our larger Hinduja group, there's a beautiful word which says work to give.
Ah,
And a lot of our efforts, especially in supporting the society, our CSR efforts, are all really on stands on that pillar of work to give, right? And have a lot of our employees who actually participate and give their time as a part of their commitment to the society. And if you have a fairly active thing that goes on in the organization. So we had one great example during COVID when the Karnataka government needed urgent help on creating a helpline
oh,
during COVID. And HGS actually picked that up. I don't know how many people know that we were running a 24 by 7 helpline in Bangalore, Karnataka. And all the employees who were on the helpline 24 by 7 in multiple languages, all of them were volunteering to do it,
oh, that's
right?
so
And it was
awesome.
not a paid project, right? It's volunteering. And you can imagine this was a difficult time, right? And I'm sure many, like all of us, people would have had COVID at home. They might have been having stress. Work was still going on, right? Nothing stopped. And in spite of all that, we had so many of our employees who came forward, who volunteered their time. And in at one point in time, at when it was at peak, we were handling about 150,000 calls a day. And he just did this as a part of our giving to the society for the Karnataka government. This is a great example where when there is a culture where, giving to the society is part of your culture, when a crisis came up, there were so many people who just very, very easily came forward to help. And we were able to do our bit in helping people and the government. And that was just done as our contribution to the society. And to me, that happened because of a strong culture of giving.
Fantastic, Giri. Thank you so much for this conversation. It's been absolutely brilliant listening to you share with so much of authenticity and so much of generosity. All of these experiences, each of which I think has shaped the way you are defining culture today for HGS. Whether it means, the connectedness that you spoke about, accentuated by technology, or the fact that you sometimes just do something because you want to contribute to a larger cause. And it doesn't need to just result only in a financial metric based ROI. This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us at Culture Cafe. And it was such a pleasure having you at our studios.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure. Thank you, Dr. Soundarya.